everybody. Welcome to Elevating Educators. Today we have a really special theme. We are doing Harry Potter. So each one of us represents a house in Harry Potter. Do you want to say hi, Ryan?
Hello, everyone. As you can see, Jessica and I both represent the Hufflepuffs.
Hufflepuff. So I'm going to read a little bit about what a Hufflepuff is. A Hufflepuff, this house values hard work, dedication, fair play, patience, and loyalty. Hufflepuffs are known for being just and true, and do what is nice is their motto. So we're going to introduce you to each person on our podcast. They'll share what their house is, and then we will fill viewers in on what that house represents.
All right, since we'll just go from the top of my feed, Jamie, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie, and I am representing Ravenclaw.
Ravenclaw. And before we go into Ravenclaw and what that means, where do you teach? What's your teaching background?
Gotcha. Okay. I am in the History and Magnet departments at Canyon Springs High School. I teach AP Human Geography, AP Comparative Politics, Media and Policy Studies, and U.S. History. I actually run the Harry Potter fan club at Canyon, in addition to working with co-moderating the Key Club, and I just took over the Model UN team. So I'm finishing up my 8th year as a teacher and my 5th year in CCSD.
So you said you're Ravenclaw, and I feel like your teaching description kind of just nails what a Ravenclaw is. The house is known for their wisdom, intelligence, creativity, cleverness, and knowledge. Those who value brains over brawn can be found here. Ravenclaws often tend to be quite quirky as well. Do what is wise is the motto they strive to follow. So welcome, Jamie.
Yeah.
All right, Nikki, you're up next.
Okay, my name is Nikki Whaley, and do you want my whole educational background stuff too?
Sure.
So I'm at Desert Pines High School, and I've been there pretty much my entire teaching career. I started there 4 years ago. This is the end of my 4th year teaching. I teach AP Lit, AP Lang, Speech and Debate, and then next year I'll be teaching AP Seminar with all of them.
Very cool. And what is your house?
Oh, sorry. Slytherin. Sometimes I forget. It's not a given. I'm like, you should just know.
All right. So Slytherins is the house of the cunning, prideful, resourceful, ambitious, intelligent, and determined. Slytherins love to be in charge and crave leadership. Do what is necessary is the motto of the house. So yay, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, and then last but not least, Vicki.
I'm Vicki Kreidel. I teach 2nd grade ELA at Lomiji Herd Magnet School. I've been teaching for 17 years, all in K2, and I'm just finishing my 7th year in CCSD. Before that, I taught in California. And I am one of the apparently rare Gryffindors, and I brought my lion.
Vicki, you are such a Gryffindor. The house of the brave, loyal, courageous, adventurous, daring, and chivalrous. Those who stand up for others are typically Gryffindors. Brave-hearted is the most well-known Gryffindor characteristic, and Gryffindors are also known for having a lot of nerve.
Sometimes.
Very interesting.
It's great for all you guys to join us today, and we all know we'll probably see quite a few animals, lions, cats, birds. What else we can pop in during this meeting today, we'll see.
Then my lion's over there eating right now. She might be back later.
So you guys kind of each of you talked about where you teach, your credentials, but focusing on your house and the qualities that I just shared with you about your Harry Potter house. What teaching qualities do you exhibit from being a Ravenclaw, a Gryffindor, a Slytherin? And Ryan, you're going to answer for Hufflepuff. So let's have, we'll work backwards. So Vicki, what type of teaching qualities do you exhibit that are that of a Gryffindor?
I don't think I've ever spent a lot of time thinking about my house and my teaching, but if I think I'm the person that's in the principal's office begging her to let me try something new. So even though I've been teaching I graduated 20 years ago, I always want to be innovative. That's really important to me. And for me, doing innovative stuff that no one else is doing takes some courage. Like to ask her, let me use my class as a guinea pig. Let me try this. We'll see if it works. And that's a big part of what I do in my classroom.
Very good. And I see it outside of the classroom for you as well. Personality attributes too. Let's go up. Who is next? Will we do Nicole or Nikki?
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely think that doing whatever you take part. So yeah, I'm like the way that I function the best is by learning all of the rules so that I can learn how to break them by following them. It's kind of like my whole teaching philosophy. And like I was in a private school for a while too, and so I feel like that's kind of where I got that from. But it's like I will read all of the rules and the regulations that they have for speech and debate, or that they have for the AP programs, or that they have just for teaching in general, and then I'll always find a way to like function within them, but do what I have to do. Because like, you know, for teachers, resources aren't always available. We don't always have the funding for things we need. We don't always have access for the things the kids need. And sometimes they need someone who's willing to take a few risks in like advocating for them. And so I think that's where like the cunning comes from, is using the rules so that I can break them while covering my tracks and being okay with it. Or my own moral values.
That's such a good quality. You can see how to go outside of the box. I love that.
Yeah.
That's good. Jamie.
I guess for me, like the creativity part is huge. My room is always an explosion of projects and energy, and there's like always something going on. And I think with my courses, I want to be like immersive and hands-on. I know, like, you know, Ravenclaw should like always be in the library, like reading books and stuff. And I'm like, that's great too, but I want my students to apply their knowledge, and the best way they can apply their knowledge is hands-on, by learning and doing it, and by teaching themselves. And I've never been a teacher who just stands at the front of the room and lectures off of a PowerPoint. I've always been the teacher who's like bouncing around, helping students facilitate. And the more that they can do themselves, and the more they can take advocacy for their own learning, the earlier, the better, because then I see the students who are engaged in the process, because they're seeing the effects of what they're learning in a more direct manner. So like my room is like chalkboards, and we're outside drawing like city models for human geography, and you know that's so much different than here's a slide, here's what like the sub-Saharan city African model looks like, where you can like stand out my window and look down at the bus plot and you can actually like see it drawn out and things like that. So I want the students to like be immersive in their learning, and I think that's probably the quality that comes through the most, because the Ravenclaws are always like seeking out additional, which is why I think I also enjoy clubs so much, because you know, clubs are in addition, right? The clubs happen when students want to do more, and I think, you know, that was always me as a student, and that's me as a teacher. Like, get out, explore, try things. If it doesn't work, then you go back and you try something new. But you know that even if that something was a failure, don't mark it as a failure. Just mark it as okay, that didn't work. Now we have plan B, plan C, plan D, however many times we need to get it right.
I love that. You are a facilitator of knowledge for sure, Jamie. Love it. And Ryan, how are you representing these Hufflepuffs? Oh, hi, kitties. Ryan, how are you a teacher as a Hufflepuff?
Oh, the idea of just being just and true. I realized trying to be nice sometimes may end up making me turn into a Slytherin. But
Be nice. Hold on.
Slytherins can be nice.
We're capable.
That's how me and Nikki get along, the Hufflepuff Slytherin connection. So But I was going to say, just because the kids appreciate it sometimes when I tell them things that they may not want to hear, but they understand that it's actually trying to like be loyal to them and telling them like things that they need to hear to be successful, like in life and in high school, and just trying to make sure that they're going to be okay. That though, and for me personally, being a media teacher for 6 years, those who have actually like have the Hufflepuff qualities of the hard work and dedication usually end up succeeding and thriving in the program and end up actually like using it as a career, which is what I've been trying to teach them all this time. Do the work, be dedicated to your craft, participate, and you'll actually end up making a career out of this media class that they're a part of.
Right. Do you want to do the next question?
I can.
Okay.
All right. We haven't practiced it, so.
In person, we're much more flowy.
Yeah, in person, we're much more flowy. But until we get to see each other full time again.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked about different houses, and we want to know how we always divide people up by friends, let them choose, assign partners, and even in development, like when we have professional development, we actually have to like sit by particular people. So if we actually grouped people by the houses, by the trait of the houses, how would that help in everything that we do?
So basically we're asking you guys, like, how would you use this strategy? What would it look like in your classroom or in professional development to use the Harry Potter sorting? Anybody have ideas?
Oh, I thought we were waiting to be called on.
Just talk.
Okay. I was like, I'll just contain myself then. I actually do use it right now. So in the beginning of the year, I sort everybody into houses. I have them take the test. I sort them into houses. They make big posters. They sign their name on the poster, and then that way they all know like who's who. And then I give house points so that at the end of every quarter, whoever has the highest house points gets like to vote if they want a cupcake or a cookie or something. And it's my way of giving like extra credit for good behavior, I guess. So if you're helping somebody out, I give your house credit. If you compete at speech and debate and you came and you were prepared, then I give you like house points. But I use them throughout all of my classes. So like my period 1 through period 8, the AP Lit, the AP Ling, and the speech and debate, all the Hufflepuffs are in the Hufflepuff house just like it is in Harry Potter. And then when I put them into groups, there's not a lot of Slytherins. In my 236 kids, I had 12 Slytherins. Mm-hmm. And I know. And for what I taught, honestly, because I teach 2 AP classes and like speech and debate, which is high competitive, I expected to have Ravenclaw and Slytherin. Like I expected that was going to be my outcome. I had an overwhelming number of Hufflepuffs. So many Hufflepuffs. And then I had 12 Slytherin. And then Gryffindor and Ravenclaw were pretty like half and half. So when it came to actually making in-class groups, it was a little bit more difficult because I was really short on like Slytherins. Mm. But so then I just tried to mix it, and then I would remind them, like, if you have a Hufflepuff, these are some of their talents, and it was my way of pointing out to them that each of you bring together a different talent. So if you have a Ravenclaw and you are overwhelmed with how intelligent they are or how they're always the highest test takers, and you think, okay, they're the smart one, it's about like smartness in different categories. So you're not smarter than each other, but that you have different skills that can help each other. So when I put them into groups, I would always be like, think about what your benefit is for what you're adding. If you're not the like test-taking smart type, then think about, are you the creative type? Then you can add your creativity to it. And it's more like being mindful about who you are and what you can bring to the table, and then like honoring the differences in other people. So I did like a thing like that. And I think it helped them. Eventually they stopped making fun of Slytherins. One of my kids did a speech on how not all the Slytherins are bad, so that was entertaining.
I have a follow-up question on, so you said that they sort themselves and they try to accrue points each class period. What if there's only one Slytherin in that class period? Do they have a higher chance of accruing points, or?
The Slytherins never won because there just wasn't enough of us. Like, for example, if I give you 10 house points for being ready to compete at a speech and debate tournament and then you go, there's like 20 Hufflepuffs and 1 Slytherin on the team. So I started doing extra points for 100% participation from a house.
Oh, okay.
And then in that case, it was like, if the one Slytherin came from period 4, you get extra points because 100% showed up. And then the Hufflepuffs were like, that's not fair. I'm like, is it though? I mean, 100% of you could show up, like, so ratio-wise.
I was thinking you would do like multipliers or something like that.
It was such a struggle, like my Slytherins. And then, of course, I had the pride problem with Slytherins. They were so convinced that they were too smart and did not need to do their assignments. I have so many Slytherins who just slid by with like a D and a C. And I was like, what is wrong with you? You're a broken Slytherin. I was like, don't you want like 105%? I'm confused.
Yeah.
But no, it was, so you just kind of find ways. I mean, you start to get to know them, and it's also because like, you're the teacher, so you can find ways to balance it out. Like maybe one day you're giving out points because someone they're looking out for other people more. And then maybe one day you're just giving extra credit because they were the highest test taker, and so that's your motivator. And then for like school pride weeks, if you came in wearing, like if it's pajama day and you came in wearing pajamas, I would count everybody with pajamas, give you the 10 points for your pajamas. And if I had 100% participation from a specific house, Slytherins, you'd get extra credit for it. So,
right.
You find a way to wiggle out your numbers.
That's awesome. I love that you do that. That's really cool.
They love it too. Even the kids who aren't interested in Harry Potter feel like they have a house.
Yeah. Does anybody else have ideas for that you would want to utilize this in your room?
I've actually done it. So I started reading Harry Potter at the end of the year. In 2nd grade, because I really want them excited about chapter books, and some of them aren't quite there yet, and so it gets them motivated. And I had to read the Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone for them to understand the context of the houses. It didn't make a lot of sense before I read the book, and it's a little bit harder with 2nd graders to put them in houses because they're not self-aware enough to like take a quiz.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are, but most of them aren't. So I have to categorize them, which I'll be honest, sometimes I'm pretty sure I miscategorize them, but I do my best. And I did have very few Slytherins and not a lot of Ravenclaws in the 2 years that I did it. But I do mix them up, and I think it's helpful because I find that I see certain traits in the different types of students in the group that belong to each house. And so you might have the Gryffindors willing to, hey, let's try this. Like we've even done competitions. I did a catapult making competition with the class, and the Gryffindors were the ones out there trying new things. But the Slytherins were the really super competitive kids who was like, don't stop, we're running out of time, and like pushing the group. So you have all these different dynamics, which it works in 2nd grade if you can get them properly categorized. That's the challenge. But I found that my kids really identified with the stories because in the Title I schools, you have a lot of kids that have gone through a lot of trauma. And the reality is Harry Potter goes through a lot of trauma. And I didn't realize until I read it to my class that so many of my kids who like maybe are foster kids or different situations know that feeling of not having a place.
Mm-hmm.
So putting them in the groups, like Nikki was saying, putting them in the groups, sometimes they just want to belong. They just want to belong somewhere because they don't feel like they belong at their house. And it also gave them hope that in the future, they'll be in a better place. You know, your destiny is not set when you're young. You know, it can change. And it does work with the younger kids too. It just takes, you have to be a little more creative with it.
Right. Would you guys ever consider using this for professional development? Like sorting staff?
I would because anything about psychology, it's a psychological test, like understanding who you are. And I think that in any aspects, it can also kind of make you more tolerant and understanding of another person, even if it's just to be like, oh, well, you're a Gryffindor, so you wouldn't do that. But it kind of provides, like, I don't want to say it provides an excuse, but it does, and then it helps us like label and address and function when someone is other than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, if you need a Gryffindor, then you're like, well, I'm going to go over here and get this Gryffindor then because I need a quality that I know a Gryffindor is going to have.
Sure. Yeah, I've been to a lot of professional developments where they'll sort us by, not necessarily Harry Potter houses, but they'll sort us by colors or numbers, and then they mix us all together and make sure there's one of each type in a group. It's kind of similar
So you don't get the
philosophy.
fun of it.
Huh?
So you don't get the fun of being like with your other house. You just be like, oh, here's the number, sit here and all that.
Yeah. But I think it could be used professionally. I'm going to ask Jamie this question because I haven't heard from her yet. Aside from sorting houses, how else can the magic of Harry Potter be brought into the classroom?
I mean, I think the whole idea that Harry Potter takes place in an educational setting. And it's kind of ironic because it's like every year starts out fine, it's okay, and then like the end of the year always ends in chaos because like Harry's like always doing something, which is really indicative of how this year went. It was like we started out fine, and then like Voldemort showed up like early March, and like now the world's on fire, and we're just all kind of like, okay, like we've got the potion to fix this. But I think that's like a draw in. And at least for me, like I related to a lot of the themes in Harry Potter. And the first book came out when I was in 3rd grade, and I remember I really wanted it, and my mom was like, if you have a good parent-teacher conference, you can pick out one book at the book fair, because like the book fair was like happening in the cafeteria. So she left me in the book fair, which was like a very dangerous thing for her to do, and went to like my parent-teacher conference. And like this like load of Harry Potter books came in, and I like sat next to the box of the books. And I'm like, I know I did all my work. I know I'm good. And so my mom comes in the cafeteria. She's like, okay, you can pick one book. I'm like, yes, Harry Potter.
Yay!
And then like the last one came out my senior year of high school. So like I literally grew up with Harry and like his gang. And so I always thought that was like really interesting because like now my students, when they read it, like they're reading it in retrospect. They can get all 7 books at once. They can watch the movies, whatever. But I think like as it went on, you saw the characters mature and develop, and you saw them tackle real issues. Even though it was in like a magical setting, you saw them tackle real issues. And I think like Vicky was saying, a lot of those issues are kind of parallel to what a lot of our students go through. Like Harry Potter found love and comfort when he was at Hogwarts. A lot of our kids come to school to be loved and comforted because that wasn't at home. Like they're not necessarily living in a broom closet under the stairs, but they're not loved until they come to school and they find like their gang, and they find like that teacher that's there for them. And I mean, like all my kids like tease me about being so into Harry Potter because I have like the posters, and I have like I have a wand in my classroom, but at the same time, my kids always know that that's like the safe zone.
Right.
And when I was growing up, and even when I was in college and getting my first classroom, I always wanted my room to be like the safe zone for kids, and like they know that's how it is. And so I think I think that's kind of like really important there. And like the themes, like it's not just like you're here to learn a lesson, like here I taught you like this potion, or I taught you about the Constitution and in regards to actual content, but I also like try and teach students like what their worth and what their value is, so like when they leave, and I'm in high school, so like my kids graduate out, like when they leave and go into the real world, like they know their worth, they know their value, they know their talents and their gifts. And it's more than just content from my like class curriculum. That you as a person stand for something, even if they're still figuring out kind of what it is. And I think Harry Potter does a really good job of doing it. It's a really good coming of age story, and what we're doing is we're raising students as they're coming of age. And if we can give them like that little push out into the real world and show them like where their value lies, I think that's probably the most important thing that we can do as educators, and probably one of the most important things that Harry Potter taught me as from 8 to 17 when I was reading this series for the first time.
That's a great answer. Does anybody else want to share how they would bring the magic into their classroom?
I think one, it makes it a really good show. So I always tell everybody that like I'm an entertainer. That is what I do for a living. My only audience is a wall most of the time. Because it's about like
That's just speech and debate life.
it really is. And I turn up the crazy all the time in my classroom. Like I will pretend hysterics when people don't have their work done because it's entertaining for them and it keeps them paying attention. And so I have a wand in my classroom too, and it isn't a Harry Potter one. I like legit ordered it from Africa, like it was a custom made wand. And then I bring it to class and I use it as my pointer. And then when kids get crazy or they tell me they don't have their work, I bring out my wand and I'm like, what did you say? Did you say you're not done? And just because it's like entertaining for them and it's how I keep their interest, but I will always kind of make jokes with them about what their crew is, or we'll have like warm-ups and stuff where we want to talk about the houses or the magic of it. And then but I really like what you guys were talking about too, about that in the actual story Harry does find love and comfort at the actual school. And I think that's really, I mean, Harry Potter is so widespread that even if you haven't read it or watched it, you know it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that just at least for the jokes and like the inside jokes and being a character and being a little bit crazy in the classroom, it's useful that I can be crazy, but on a level that they have at least experienced. So they're just like, oh, she's just a weird Harry Potter person. And like, even when I first ordered them, like green is my favorite color and I wear green all the time. And they're like, oh, that's why you like green is because you're Slytherin. And I'm like, no, it actually just kind of happened that way.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I'm not sure. But it's fun, like they will say that about each other. It just builds classroom climate really well.
Absolutely. Do any of you have a favorite book? Harry Potter book?
I like the first book. I think it's mostly because that's the one I always get to read for the kids. And I get so excited when I know, like, when he discovers his magic and he finds out the truth about himself, like the build up to that. Like right now I'm reading it to my kids in my virtual classroom. And I'm like, oh, you guys just wait. And I had to ask my principal, can I still read to them over summer? Like I'm not done. And some of them won't have the book. And so for me, it's the first book because I thought it was so beautifully crafted. And I think the other books are good too, but it's a special one to me because that's the one I always get to read.
That's sweet that you're going to keep going.
Sorry, Jessica, but mine's Goblet of Fire, and I'll tell you why.
It's because of Cedric?
It's actually a memory that I have. So it's actually related to working in college when it came out. I was working the night Goblet of Fire got released. So imagine like seeing like at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, people at like, it was the old Kmart on Horizon and Eastern for those back in the day. And people were lining up like around 9 o'clock at night to buy it. And people it would not let them scan like legally. It would be like, you can't purchase it.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is I snuck one behind my drawer because I worked in the photo booth at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Made sure I actually got to get one the next day. So I actually took it home to read it and then fell in love with it that way.
That's awesome.
And so Jess and I kind of fell out with it afterwards, but then Jess and I have a mutual friend and coworker that kind of got me back into it.
So we have a coworker, Alex Kenny, whose entire classroom is Harry Potter to the nines. It's amazing. But my book is also Goblet of Fire because that was the first death that I was emotionally attached to where I started crying in a book. And I started crying because I'd never seen an author kill off a child because Cedric's a child, essentially. So I started crying while I read it. So that one will always be heartbreaking. And then, of course, every death thereafter, I cry. I cried for Dobby. I cried for Albus Dumbledore. I cried
Dobby
for the
broke me.
Dobby broke me. You know what else broke me? Hedwig.
Yes.
I was just sobbing. Like
yeah.
Death doesn't do well in my heart.
Well, I remember reading an interview with J.K. Rowling, and people were so angry that she killed off Hedwig, and she's like, well, that was the death of Harry's innocence. And other people are like, well, you know, he saw all these other people die. Like, literally, his parents were murdered in front of him.
True.
But she was like, but like that was Hedwig represented innocence and purity, and was Harry's closest and really first companion in the magical world. And because I remember after reading that, like the 7th book, and like in all the death, I was just like, how could you do this to me? And like, and then she was like talking about like who she thought about killing off, and then why she did kill off who she did. And it was just like, I'm like, oh, I get it. Like, my heart's still broken, but like I understand. And it was really powerful. And I know sometimes like critics are like, well, it's a child's book, whatever. Like, it's not. I'm like, but like children's literature and like, you know, young adult literature is still really powerful. And that's the first thing that kids read. And if you want to get early and continual readers, you need to hook them with stuff like that. And yeah, but Hedwig's death was probably, yeah, that. And like when he Lupin and Tonks, I like bawled. I was like, no, God.
Oh yeah, that was
like,
hard.
Like the battle, the entire Battle of Hogwarts was difficult.
Nikki,
Is that your favorite book?
No, I'd have to say that the first one is my favorite too, just because that's what opened the door. And I mean, and like it's no secret that like I've been sick my entire life, and I spent a lot of my childhood really sick. I spent a lot of my adulthood really sick. So for me, Harry Potter was an escape, and so it was a series that I loved and like I saw myself in. And the first book was really the first one that kind of opened up like that magical like little cupboard. Not, you know, not to steal from Narnia, but really opened up like that door into like this big new world where I'm like, I wish I was here and I could imagine myself there. And when I imagined myself in the world of Harry Potter, I wasn't like the sick kid anymore. I was just like, this is like my adventure. Like, I'm tagging along behind like the trio. Like, this is but I love the first book. The 7th book broke me, but I think the 7th book was a good conclusion to the series. I really enjoyed the 5th book too, because the 5th book was where Harry really you saw Harry had to tackle real adult issues and continuous issues, and you had to see him deal with like the ministry disbelieving him and people trying to silence him because he's a child, and he's like, but I have things to say and things to share. And I think that's a very relatable struggle for a lot of people, saying like, oh, well, you know, talk to me when you're older, or like when you're older, this will make sense. And he's like, but you know, I don't have to be old to understand things. And I think that was really powerful. And you saw him go through a huge growth platform during that book.
That was the first book that they really dive into the government, don't they? Because you always hear about the Ministry of Magic, but you don't actually see it until 5th.
Yeah, the 5th book is really where, like, that summer between the 4th and the 5th book. You know, the 4th book where Cedric dies, and the 3rd book they love Harry. 4th book they're like, no, things are fine, it's fine, it's okay. And then the 5th book is like government full on denial. This didn't happen. You're lying. He's just a stupid kid type deal. So yeah, I think that was definitely like, you saw this. It got darker at that point, like, and it got more like mature, where all of a sudden it wasn't the series I started when I was 8 anymore, and I was glad I was reading it when I was older because I could understand the underlying themes that were going on.
all right, Nikki, what's your favorite?
I almost feel like it's repetitive, but mine is also the Goblet of Fire. And it is because suddenly the world was bigger. Like, up until then, I did not it didn't hit me that there were other schools of witchcraft and wizardry. And then, like, suddenly schools are coming from all over. And then, of course, the French school. I'm like, wasn't super femme, but really wanted to be. My mom was like a boxer. And so when I'm reading this and there's just like all these women who walk perfectly and they walk in time together and they're all like witches and have all this magic, I was like, God, these women are glamorous and I want to be one. Like, where did they come from? And everybody was obsessed with them and thought they were fabulous. And I was like, they definitely are fabulous. But then it's also, that's when you kind of like get the whole idea of the library and how extensive the Hogwarts library is, that there's all of these books that you have to be a certain age to read. And my parents didn't have like reading restrictions for me. So I was like, wow, what are these books? These are like super fancy magic books. And then of course, like Hermione finally has her, I think they're finally respecting her because they need the research and they need the work. And I'm like, oh, okay, they stopped making fun of her and they actually value her as an intellect for once. And then I was just, it's really all of the other schools. I was like, God, it's a whole huge world. And then of course, like when you're a kid and you're hoping for an escape, you're like, there's only one in England and we're Irish. So we like inherently make fun of English. So I was like, I didn't want England. But as soon as I realized there's a French school, I was like, oh my God, it's perfect. 18 in France. I literally took French class in high school because of the girls at the Yule Ball. It was like,
They're gorgeous.
that's all I wanted to be. God.
That's so funny.
All right. So since we all have read Potter, I figure I test the 4 skills. So I have a list of 25 questions. We're not obviously going to do all 25.
Okay.
These are divided into easy, medium, hard, and super hard.
Okay. Can I read ones?
So we'll just choose 5 and see which house is the better.
Oh, God.
Ravenclaw. She wins.
Extra hard ones because she's already admitted she's good at trivia. So she gets all the hard questions.
So we'll start with an easy one.
Okay.
Harry Potter played 5 years of Quidditch at Hogwarts. Of these years, how many times did Gryffindor beat Hufflepuff?
What?
Hufflepuff specific.
That's the easy question?
That's a hard one. What are you talking
They're
about?
all different orders.
Can we just guess a number?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 7.
But he only played for 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, like not every specific game, just
Overall.
Like, that's what I was thinking, like where the final came down to Gryffindor and Hufflepuff.
Yeah,
Right.
like how many times does Gryffindor beat Hufflepuff?
could it be more than 5, or is it capped at 5?
No, it's not 5.
Could it
Okay,
be
so
more
he
than
didn't go
5?
back his 7th year, and he got banned from playing when Umbridge was there. So that's 2 years down. They beat them in the first year. Who were they playing when he got hit by the Whomping Willow? Were they playing Hufflepuff? So I think maybe 3, maybe?
No, Nick was actually closer.
Is it 4?
1.
I don't know.
Just the first year.
All right, 1 for Slytherin. I think
All right.
That was not an easy question. That was very obscure.
All right, let's see. I'm going to see if I can find an easier question. I was told these are easy, so based on
From the Lux family, though, I mean, they just
They lied to you.
All right, let's see if this one's a little bit easier. Which book is the only one that Voldemort does not appear in?
does not appear in.
Chamber of Secrets?
No.
Oh.
That one. Wait.
What's the one with Tom Riddle? Is that considered Voldemort if Tom Riddle shows up?
Was it Half-Blood Prince? Voldemort himself never appears.
I think 6. The 6th book, but I'm also not sure.
Ryan's shaking his head no.
Oh, Order of the Phoenix.
First.
For the Phoenix? No, he appears in the first one in the mirror.
Yes.
He's on the back of Coral's head. So it would be 3 or 6.
That's my final answer.
Prisoner of Azkaban.
3.
Duh, because it's the difference.
All right.
I'm sucking at this. I need to be like Vicky and just be.
All right.
Brian,
So,
we're good at it.
what does Hermione's parents do for a living?
Oh, they're dentists.
Yes.
She's like, wait,
All right. Alphabet. Oh, this one my. Okay, this should be an easy one. I was going to go with a hard one, but I decided to go with easy. What teacher is a ghost?
Oh, Professor Binns, History of Magic.
Yes.
Yes. He died in the teacher's lounge. Got up, started teaching. That's gonna be me. I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, I just don't quit.
All right.
I'm gonna go be a ghost now.
Here's a challenging one. See if you know your characters. Alphabetically, who is the last person in Harry Potter's class at Hogwarts?
It's a stupid question. Why would I know the roster?
Was it? Oh, is
Ron
it Blaze
Weasley?
the Beanie?
Wait,
Ron Weasley?
not Weasley, but it's Blaze the Beanie.
Ah, yes. He's a Slytherin. I don't know how I knew that.
All right, we'll do one more. See if I can find one here. What did Dumbledore leave Harry, Ron, and Hermione in his will?
The three. No, okay. So Ron got the Putter Outer, and Harry had the Golden Snitch, and Hermione got the Tales of Beetle the Bard.
Yes.
All right, Ravenclaw wins, like I said.
You just said she
I guess-
won before we started.
Because I knew. I was like, I'm going to beat her.
The Harry Potter Club advisor wins over everyone. I don't mind sharing these because I probably end up using these next year since I'm going back to English for the first time in
Forever.
forever.
For the first time in forever.
I was about ready to start singing.
I've taught full-time English in 6 years, so it's going to be interesting.
Hmm.
All right, so we normally leave our show. We have three questions that we ask everyone. Vicky has done this before because she's been on the show before.
Do we have her do it again or just skip a?
Well, we can have her do it again. Her answers may have changed in a year.
Okay.
Probably.
So the first question is, what would your dream school look like? If you could build your own school, what would it look like? Jamie, we'll start with you.
My dream school. I guess, my ultimate dream as an educator is actually to build a technical school on the Navajo reservation, because that's where I started my teaching career, and that's something that definitely is lacking in their community. And when I left the Navajo Nation, I ended up in Philadelphia, where I actually worked at a vocational, like, technical school with like cosmetology, construction, things like that. And so I saw like the effectiveness of it, and students who went there, if they wanted to do a more traditional, career, like go into college and major in something, they could, but if not, they already had the skills that they could take out into the world or, build upon once they graduate high school. So I think like my real dream school is like a comprehensive and technical school where kids have the option, and I would want to put it where I came from. I would want to put it back on the Navajo Nation, because I saw so many students who had potential but not the opportunity, and I think it'd be great to give them that opportunity. So that would probably be my dream school for students, is to have that availability open to people.
Nikki, what about you?
A school built around kinesthetic things, like moving, touching, doing. I hate being inside a classroom, like a lot. I want to be outside, and I want like larger rooms, like auditorium-ish sort of style. But I would love, like, I had read a bunch of stuff in New York, especially for elementary kids, because they're all about action and movement, where the whole school was designed that every classroom was meant to be like a discovery museum. So you touch things, you learn things, you like move things, and obviously that requires a bunch of storage and a bunch of money. But I would prefer that in everything we did, we could get up and do it. Especially because kids don't have enough opportunities to get off of the desk in the first place. Like, they're always sitting down, They get up from one place and they sit down in another, and that's crazy because we all know it's not okay to sit down that much, and even teachers were told get up and move, and office people get up and move, and yet we expect kids who have more energy than us to sit and stay, and that's silly.
And when someone walks in and sees all the kids up and around, it's like you don't have any classroom management, so it's also like a service to them.
Oh yeah, and my classroom is insane, and I've had like instructional coaches or other teachers come in and they look at my room and they're like, "Oh, Miss Bailey, your room is so chaotic. Like, how do you handle?" I'm like, "It's not. They're all doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, and it looks chaotic, but like I would much rather this than everybody sitting down, bored and staring at me."
Yeah, because I get the same thing. People look in and be like, "What on earth are you doing?" And I have kids outside in the hall, kids everywhere, doing stuff, and. All right, Vicki, we'll be curious to see if your answer has changed within a year.
Well, it would be helpful if I could remember what I answered last time. But, so I don't remember, but I will tell you that I moved to a magnet school this year. And it's my first time working at a magnet. And honestly, I love my school. And what I'd like to see in all schools is this kind of magnet idea where the school picks the focus of the school, it uses the passions of the teachers, and then you create a vision and a mission and a program that matches your collective vision. And I wish that all schools could do that. And one of the things that we do is called Voyages, and every few weeks, each teacher gets to pick something they just really want to teach kids. Painting, dancing, could be robotics.
That's cool.
With coding. I did a culinary academy in my classroom. I did Lomi G. Hurd Medical School, where kids 1st through 3rd got to come in my classroom, and we pretended like we were going to medical school, and they learned about the human body. So we get to pick something we're passionate about. And if every school harnessed the passion of the teachers, I think that it would lift the culture of the school. And when it lifts the culture of the school, it helps everybody, including the students. So that's, now that I've experienced that, I would like to see that at every school.
All right. I think you had a different answer last year.
Oh,
So this is the next question should be pretty short. What is your most annoying buzzword in education? Like your least favorite acronym or buzzword in education?
So like NEF and rigor and
Let them say.
I don't know how that look like. What should I say?
You don't say it. So Jamie, it's your turn.
I think if we narrowed it down, got specific to here, any PF drives me nuts. Just because I know I'm a good teacher, and my kids like my class, and I love what I do. But I feel like I feel like a circus monkey sometimes, trying to jump through hoops to prove that I'm good and that I'm effective. And I feel like if someone just came into my room and just sat for a little bit and saw me interact and saw me teach and didn't base my entire worth as an educator off of 40 minutes of an evaluation, I think a lot of people feel that way, especially when you have someone who doesn't quite know, someone who wasn't in your field before, who was well, I don't understand what you're doing, so this is not good. And it's well, my kids understand because my kids show up every day. So I think just things like that. There's so many acronyms. I feel like I'm speaking alphabet soup some days, and I feel like it's all more it's just more paperwork than is necessary. I wish I could just teach and not have to deal with the bureaucracy, and any PF is just bureaucracy tied up in an acronym.
What I feel bad about is I'm a school counselor, and we just recently started NEPF, I think 2 years ago, but ours is based on ASCA standards. So it's awesome. It's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. You can hit those marks very easily. But when I was a teacher, I can see how it's nearly impossible to get every single box indicator filled twice if you want a 4. And so I wish that there are people in your corner at the state that would revamp it to be more what it's supposed to be about.
We're working on that.
We're working on that.
Yay!
Get it, Vicky? Look at you, you little Gryffindor.
I'm walking across the keyboard, so y'all just met Tango there real quick.
No? All right, Nikki, what is your least favorite buzzword?
I think it's really similar to what Jamie had said, but mine is like, I think it comes in a pack. It has to be like professional development and CU. And I hate it. I hate the process. I hate the words. I've like, I keep submitting them and they keep getting declined for like literally anything and everything and the whole work of all the things. And then every time someone's like, there's every professional development I take, I'm like, this is useless. And then it disgusts me because then you get stuck in how everything seems corrupt. And then I'm like, anytime someone says anything about professional development, I want to hide under a rock. I can't take it. And because I'm always telling like, I get a raise off of being a student, not off of being a teacher. And I have to pay for professional developments for things that I already paid to go to college for. And I just need to pay to have somebody who never taught before tell me that I'm going to be a good teacher because I've listened to them talk for 3 hours. And I'm like, this is just disgusting and I hate it. And if I could overthrow anything, and I would overthrow a lot, if I could only overthrow one, it would be how CUs are determined, because professional development is an effing joke and it does not make me more of a profession. My kids, their feedback, their emotions, learning from them, like kids teach me so much because like I have a bit of an anger problem as well. So when I come across kids who do, it's a lot of me questioning and developing myself to how to be better for them. So being a teacher, running speech and debate, those to me are way more of a professional developing than sitting in a class where someone can tell me, literally I just did one that was a video and how to speak professionally in a video. And I'm like, oh, I teach speech and debate. Did you have to teach me this? Like, can I just take a test and be over this, please?
Nikki, you should pursue national board, because that's all it is exactly what you said. It's all taking in what the kids are doing and reflecting on it.
I actually did do that this year, and then everything got canceled. And so I took my money.
I'm going to get your info from Ryan, and I'm going to ask that you join our virtual cohort because it is the best thing ever.
Honestly, I need it because the cohort at my school was an effing joke. It was terrible. We can get into that.
No. We'll talk. I'm excited for you.
I'm down for that.
All right, Vicky.
All right, Vicky.
After basically 20 years of being in education, I'm going to say all the stupid buzzwords. I mean, the problem is like growth mindset of itself is not a horrible thing. I don't mind the idea of growth mindset, but when it's constantly beat over our heads, rigor, growth mindset, standardize, all these things, even if it's something that's effective, then it's not something we want to work on or do. I just think that the pendulum swings so much in education from one thing, oh, that didn't work, so let's try this thing way over here, let's go back to what we were doing before. And it's exhausting. As a professional, it's exhausting. And if you think about other professions, respected professions where people go to college like we do,
True that.
it doesn't happen in those professions. I mean, changes do happen, like they make small changes, but it's not drastic like what we have to do in education. So I think a lot of those buzzwords can be negative if they're forced on us constantly.
All right, so now the third and final question. Real or fake, who is the most influential teacher in your life?
Ooh, we should change this one.
Okay, what to what?
We should say who was the most influential Harry Potter character for this one.
This time around, yeah.
Since it's a Harry Potter theme.
You're right. So who's the influential Harry Potter character for you?
Jamie.
Oh, okay. So I knew what your questions were, so I was like all ready with like my Mr. Feeney spiel. But for Harry Potter, um, I'm gonna say Hagrid because he just kind of fell into teaching and he just kind of had to make it up as he went, and he was always able to like acknowledge like where his shortcomings were, but he was there for the kids. Like Hagrid would have sacrificed himself for those students, even the ones who didn't respect him. And there were a lot of Hogwarts students who didn't respect him. And I think Hagrid loved those kids, and he stayed, and he had every reason to leave, and he stayed at Hogwarts because he had found his home there as well. So I think Hagrid, because like he was always there. He was always behind the kids 100%, and he would have done anything to help out like his kids. So Hagrid.
That's a really good answer.
All right, Nikki.
I'm still thinking.
Should we skip you and come back?
Yeah,
Let's see Vicky.
All right, Vicky.
So did you say a teacher from Harry Potter or just a character?
Just any character.
So for me, it's always Hermione. I see so much of myself in Hermione. Like as a child, I was mothering people, like my whole childhood. I was the one who doesn't want to break the rules, but yet I'm not going to let my friends do things alone. In case they get in trouble, they'll need me. And I was a perfectionist in school. I was very studious. If I had to study extra, I would. So I really, watching her come of age, I didn't have a great childhood. And so watching Hermione come of age in some ways allowed me to have the childhood that I wished I would have had. And the way that her and the other characters empowered themselves to overcome the adversity that they were facing. Like they couldn't depend on the adults in their life, so they had to handle it themselves. And I really identify with Hermione in like a million different ways.
I love that. Nikki, did you come up with one?
I don't know, because I definitely Hagrid was like one of my two that I was deciding between, but I think a lot of it is like not characters that you like the entire time, but ones you like at the end. So of course, like Professor Snape, because he's the one that I get to use as the defense for Slytherin all the time. But also, like, it makes sense. He was so self-sacrificing his entire life, and that whole like do whatever has to be done. And sometimes I feel like that is I feel like I just like relate to that, because there's a lot of like pride that goes into how hardworking I am and how far I've come. But then sometimes also in reflection, it's like I had to give up a lot of my personal dreams as a teacher, my idea of a livable wage that I have to give up to be able to fight for others. And it's like there's a lot of, I don't know, especially in teaching, there's a lot of self-sacrificing, and you don't notice it until you reflect. And I think that's a lot of Snape, like the dream position that he was definitely like qualified for, but he had to just keep getting stepped over and over and over again. And then he had to allow everybody to hate him so that he could be like the shield for other people. And sometimes I feel that way. Like in my family, I'm the youngest of 9. And so there's a lot of, I will take the brunt of that because you don't get it yet. Like you just you grow up watching other people make mistakes and you learn not to do it yourself. But I just feel like Snape is that. He's just everybody's scapegoat, and he's trampled over all the time. But the whole series, you think that he's the bad one and that he's somehow spared from trauma, when really he's has just a traumatic life with other people. So it kind of like reminds you to question everybody's background and not just those that seem to be the brave or seem to be the good and the justified or seem to be the wise. I don't know. He's a super powerful character.
I remember when that book came out, everybody at the bookstore for the midnight, signing or picking it up.
Yeah.
you had to walk in and choose your sticker, like Snape is evil or Snape is good. And I remember my best friend picked the evil and I picked the good. And then when I spent 2 days just reading straight through, and I was like, he is good. I knew it.
He's literally everywhere all of the time. Like,
I know.
And the kids spent so long trying to prove him wrong. And every single time he came out good. And it's like, really, in the end of it, he proved over and over and over again what kind of person he was and still
Right.
people got him. So I'm like, it's just, and he stayed and he tried.
Good. Ryan, do you have a favorite Harry Potter?
It's Hermione, mostly for the same reason as Vix. Like, literally, as a kid, I was the one that always went by the rules. I would get upset when I was a kid. I would get upset when I didn't know the spelling words correctly. I wanted to succeed and be the one that actually has like straight A's and rule the world and all that. And it just took me a long, long time to get out of my shell and actually fight for what's right and all that stuff now. So for me, it would be Hermione.
That's cute.
What about you, Jessica?
I've been mulling this over because there's so many good characters. I would say Mrs. Weasley, and the reason why is because she not only fights for her family like ferociously, she adopted Harry and would send him Christmas packages and would send him things and just cared for him like one of her own. And just that protective quality, making sure everybody's fed. I like how she takes care of everyone up until the very last moment. And especially that line in the last book when she calls Beatrix a bitch. That was so good. I was like, yes.
Yeah, I forgot about how cool she is. That's
cool.
I really liked the idea in Harry Potter that you can choose your family, that you're not necessarily stuck with your blood relatives, that you can pick people and surround yourself with people who you love and trust, because that's what they do at Hogwarts. And that's what Harry got to do. So I really like that.
You guys are making me want to just binge all of them again.
I've never seen a Harry Potter movie at all.
Really?
And I was thinking about that when this was going on. And then, like, my boyfriend is not. Like, I played the Harry Potter Wizarding Unite game on my phone all of the time. And he's always like, what are you, Harry Pottering? And I'm like, yes. And he accuses me of, and he was there when I bought my wand. And he always accuses me of living in, like, a little magic world. And I'm not going to lie, I have a box of spells under my bed. So, like, he knows that I'm super weird. Like, and then we did a trivia game. It was all in the movies, and he's seen the movies, and I never have. And there was stuff that was, like, specific to the movies. So now I told him, I was like, you do realize that, like, we're going to need to have a movie marathon, because I've literally never seen a single one, and I feel so left out.
Some of them will irritate you, though, because they leave out large chunks of information.
That is just the product of being a reader, you know?
Yeah.
I love me a good book, and I hate me a good movie.
Yeah.
A movie that went along with, have you ever found a movie that went along with the book exactly?
Oh, exactly, yes.
Really?
Margarita. It is Russian. It is a Russian dystopian novel, but it is one of the best I've ever read, especially if you know, like, Pontius Pilate and the whole Jesus Christ trial story, because it's based in, like, Russia after it becomes an atheist country, like, technically. It's so good, and the movie, I have it. It is actually like a 2-part DVD, because it does follow it word for word and scene for scene, which is crazy because one of the characters is a talking cat. So I'm not saying it's a good movie, but in the movie, it's a guy dressed up in a cat suit, just walking around being a cat, while everything else actually looks realistic. You just have this guy in a cat suit. Like,
Wow.
But yes, it is word for word.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All right. Well, we really enjoyed talking with all of you Harry Potter fanatics, and you represented your houses really well.
Apparently knows everything.
Yes. And where can people find you in case they like you and want to talk to you? Do you guys have Twitter?
I do.
Vicky, what's your Twitter handle?
Let me look.
I don't remember.
Doesn't remember her Twitter handle.
Okay, we're gonna skip. We're gonna go to Jamie.
Yeah, I do. My Twitter handle is at Miss T in Vegas.
Okay, and I'll tag you. Nikki, do you have a Twitter?
I do, and I only follow. I pretty much never post, but it's also my band's. It's not like me.
Yes, her band is amazing too.
Ooh.
Well,
What-
mostly it's our band name is called the Dominiki.
Okay.
And it's super. I don't want to call it like man hating because we don't hate men. We just kill a lot of them. Like that's. It's it's like if Thelma and Louise and Quentin Tarantino made music.
Or made music.
That is the music that I play.
Your other
All
band
right, we'll tag it. That's
Aren't
cool.
your band members other CCSD teachers too, Nikki?
They are. Yeah, my bass player is a kindergarten teacher, and my drummer is a music teacher.
Nice.
So cool.
And
Right.
you
Vicky,
released an album too, right?
Huh?
And you have an album out too, right?
Yeah, we released it a year ago now. Yeah.
And Vicky, how can people follow you?
So it's at Vix, VIX _ Kreidel, KREIDEL.
Okay. So we'll post that, and thank you guys for watching.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us. Fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thank you.